Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm just going to put my face on the screen for 1 second and then hand over to my colleague, Stephen. But I just wanted to kind of say a quick introduction. My name's Daniel Clements and I work for Emapsite, as you can see on the screen, my details. And I want to just give you a quick introduction before we hand over. And then I'm going to turn off my camera because I know full well that will affect my Wi-Fi working from home. So if you just bear with me to change the slide. Here we go. So the quick agenda here is the importance of utility reports. Stephen's kindly joined us from Technics, who actually compile the reports for us. This is a picture of me, not me literally, but my workstation over the last 4 months. Once Stephen's gone through the importance and how these reports are created, I'll finish off with how to actually physically order these reports through Emapsite and the platform. And then we'll make sure we've got time to take any questions. Last week we run this session and we made sure we had a bit of 5 minutes at the end because of some good questions coming through. And I'll say it now before I finish off at the end. We're kind of always keen to understand how we can improve things. That's either the report itself, the content, what's included in the report, or how you go through Emapsite to actually order that data. So please engage with myself after the session on the chat or follow up with contacting me. And any idea is a good idea for us. Anything you wish to kind of include, even things like maybe even, I'll just say one for now, land registry data and including ownership of titles that you're interested in, for example. But no further ado, I'm going to ask to pass over the controls to Stephen, who's going to talk you through the next slides for the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name's Stephen Sawyer. I'm the head of utility reporting over at Technics. And today I'm going to be presenting you with an overview of the importance of utility reports. And we're going to cover the ubiquitous nature of utilities, the crucial need to keep records on their location, and the ways in which we can carry out the collection of the record. So it's going to be a sort of an overview to the entire process of utility report, why you need one, and just utilities in general. So to get ourselves into the right frame of mind, if the slide will change. There we go. So we'll look at a brief overview of what utilities are and how they're used. So utilities come from a variety of sources. They come from power stations, wind farms, hydroelectric plants, solar farms, water treatment plants, among others. They're just some of the more well-known ones. And then all of these feed into homes and businesses across the country, allowing you to do things like run a shower, boil a kettle, or turn on a light. So really just a basic overview of what we're talking about. Utilities, everything from level power stations right down to flicking on a light switch. So for the purposes of utility reporting, we define utilities as subsurface plant, pipes, cables, etc., operating in the areas of electricity transmission and distribution, gas transmission and distribution, they're two different things, water and sewerage supply, telecoms and cable, including fiber networks, transportation networks, and oil and fuel supply. Those are the key categories for us. There are a few smaller ones, like you've got district heating networks and other items like that, but these are the main categories that the bulk of utilities fall into. Now, there are a number of key suppliers responsible for these industries, and we're going to look at some of them here just to give you an overview into the industry as a starting point. So we will start with gas. The UK's gas distribution and supply network is divided between 4 large gas transporters and a number of smaller IGTs, they're known, or independent gas transporters. The gas transporters, shown here, are responsible for specific areas of the national gas transmission system, whereas the IGTs tap into the networks of the larger suppliers shown here to provide gas to smaller developments. So the suppliers we have here are going in clockwise order from the top. SGN, previously known as Scotia Gas Networks, Scotland Gas Networks, and Southern Gas Networks. Those are all previous names they've used and are using in some capacity. They're responsible for the gas transmission and distribution in Scotland and areas of southern England. Then you have Northern Gas Networks, who are responsible for gas in Yorkshire, Northern Cumbria, areas across the northeast. Then you have National Grid, who were once responsible for the entire network, but they sold a number of their regional networks to the company shown here, and are now only responsible for networks in the northwest of England, the east of England, the West Midlands, and London. And then finally, you have Wales and West Utilities, who are responsible for gas across all of Wales and then southwest England. And you'll notice these aren't the same companies as shown on most gas bills and other documentation like that. The companies shown on these documents, so your gas bill, etc., are usually simply their gas sales companies, whereas the companies we contact are the companies directly responsible for the gas networks. And you'll notice I mentioned that they are responsible for distribution and transmission. The big gas transmission pipes, ones that run across the whole country, and the distribution ones that actually distribute gas to properties and businesses, whatnot. Those in the gas industry, while those are different types of pipeline, they do tend to be serviced by the same supplier. Whereas in the electricity network, it's a different game. So in the electricity network of the UK, you've got the main suppliers here. This was previously centralised, as with the gas network, used to be completely National Grid. But now it's been split out into transmission and distribution. So National Grid are still responsible for the high voltage transmission cables that go across the country, a lot of the big pylons and whatever you see, but not all of them. But all of the all of the electricity transmission cables are still done by National Grid. But where that electricity then feeds into businesses, homes, etc., basically anywhere once it leaves the main pylon transmission system, that has now been divided between a number of district network operators, shown here, and a number of independent district network operators, known as IDNOs, who operate in the same way as the IGTs in the previous slide. So if you've got a specific development, you can go to an independent network instead of the main supplier, but we'll cover those in a minute. So going clockwise from the top again, the district network operators, so those which make up the big puzzle of the UK and are each responsible for a geographic region thereof, are Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks, Scottish Power, sometimes known as SP Energy Networks, Northern Power Grid, who are split into Northern Power Grid North East and Northern Power Grid Yorkshire, UK Power Networks, Western Power Distribution, and Electricity Northwest. Together, they all have specific geographic remits, which when pieced together make up a puzzle that covers the whole of, well, mainland Britain at least. And then they do also cover a number of the smaller islands. Now, moving on from electricity, we have the water and sewer industry for the UK. So water and sewerage provision is handled slightly differently. You'll have a number of companies who are responsible for both water and sewerage, and then a number of smaller companies who will only be responsible for water. So on this side, you can see the water and sewerage suppliers in the UK. Each of these are responsible for all of your water, so that's all your potable, drinkable water, but including things like fire mains, etc., all water plus foul sewerage, surface water sewerage, or storm sewerage. They're responsible for the lot in their specific area of operation. There are a number, again, there are independent suppliers, but we'll cover those in a minute. But these are the guys who are responsible for the main jigsaw of the UK. Now, beyond that, you have companies who are responsible for water only. There's a lot more of these. It's much more diverse. You've got everything from your huge suppliers, such as Thames Water, because Thames Water, if you think of their suppliers, this massive blob where they supply all of the water and sewerage, and then it has tiny little bits all around the edge where they only supply the water. In some areas, they are only a water supplier. So it goes from big suppliers like that down to tiny suppliers, such as Hartlepool Water in the top left of the slide, who are literally only responsible for the city of Hartlepool. So there's a big range in the water industry, but these are, again, suppliers with a specific geographic remit, certain areas they serve, they don't go outside of those areas. So, but they are only responsible for water, so that's drinkable, potable water, fire mains, etc. like that. They don't handle sewerage. So, moving on from these, so these are the main suppliers with the geographic remit in the UK. Moving on from the main suppliers, you have a number of independent suppliers. So these are some of the ones from the gas industry. These are known as independent gas transporters. They tap into the main supply network to supply individual developments. They don't have a specific geographic remit. They can operate anywhere across the UK. So if you're building a new few houses, building some houses in a village, you think, oh, I need gas for these houses, I'm going to put it out to tender. These guys can come in and if they win that tender, they will then tap into the main network and provide their own specialized network just for you. So they operate anywhere. And then similarly, you have the same system for electricity. I've shown some of them here, independent district network operators. These, again, they just tap into the main electricity grid to provide smaller networks to cover individual developments that people ask them to serve. And then there are also the same system operating in water, some of them here. These are just known as local water companies. Again, these are companies that provide services to individual developments rather than serving a strict geographic region. They're just independent, tap in wherever you ask them to. Now, moving on from the main networks there, we also have telecoms. So we've got a number of the key telecoms and cable companies here. So we've got everything from BT, Virgin Media, Sky, everybody. So we search nearly 30 suppliers for our full utility reports. This ensures total coverage for your location, because the telecoms industry is one of the most complex. You get so many different suppliers. There's no such thing as a set geographic remit. I mean, well, BT have to serve the whole of the UK, for example, but everybody else that is operate as and where. So it's very, very piecemeal. You need to be very careful to make sure that you're contacting everybody in this industry. And then moving on from telecoms, you also have the oil and fuel industry. So there's a wide variety of oil and fuel suppliers crisscross in the UK, nearly 40 companies included in our reports. So you've got pipelines that you just wouldn't even think of being there. Most companies will operate a single pipeline that will just run straight across the UK in the most rural, random areas that you wouldn't expect. And there's even ones such as redundant pipelines that have been left by the MOD. There you go, Defence Infrastructure Organisation. We can cover those. So there's a lot of stuff that you just really wouldn't expect out there. And then moving on that, you also have the transportation networks that are included in the reports. So we search a number of transportation providers, including Network Rail and London Underground. So for the rail networks, these cover all of the land the companies lay claim to, not just the rails. So this ensures, for example, that you're made aware of instances such as areas which have been safeguarded for Crossrail 2, that's the little 2 logo there, or land which is owned by Network Rail for access, storage, etc. You'd be surprised how much land Network Rail own away from the track, usually linked to the track by a road or a yard or something, but not always. You can be surprised. It'll be quite a distance from a railway line, but they'll still own that land, and we will highlight that for you. So that's your main overview of the utility providers. As I say, there are smaller categories such as your district heat networks, but those are your main categories that you go out to when you're trying to find the utilities for your site. Now, moving on from our utility overview, we'll look at the need to gather information on utilities and how it can help you. So there's 4 overarching reasons behind the collection of utility mapping. First one, which I preemptively clicked there, is health and safety. That's your number 1 reason for going out for utility information. Then you have cost benefits, efficiency benefits, and statutory requirements, also very important. So first off, we'll look at health and safety. This is the most important element of why you would go out and look for the utilities around the site. So the images on this slide show the disastrous after effects of strikes on gas mains and other gas apparatus. As you can see here, damaging utility mains, or gas mains in particular, can have catastrophic repercussions. So people, land, cars, entire neighbourhoods put at risk if you don't follow the proper precautions. But it's not just limited to gas. So damage to electricity cables can also have serious effects, as shown here. So as you can see from the first example, this has been a blast from damage to an electricity line, which left one worker fighting for his life and significant damage having been caused to the surrounding area. So big repercussions of having gone through that electricity line. And in the second example, you can see the wider, less direct repercussions. So in this instance, it was found that the party conducting the works when the electricity cable was hit hadn't provided any plans of the underground plant in the area. Very relevant. So due to this, the site operative experienced serious injuries and the company has been sued under relevant health and safety legislation. So it can have big, wide implications if you don't give the plans on site. So I've also included this example for electricity again, just to illustrate that it's not simply the obvious areas where events like this can happen. So in this example, the company was carrying out excavation on a seemingly empty patch of grassland, nothing around to indicate that there might be utilities there. No visible infrastructure, no curb lines, road lines. You can go in when something's laid in a road, you can often see where it's been laid. Nothing like that, no signage, anything. Just a patch of field that they assumed would be empty. So this meant they let down their guard, thinking utilities wouldn't be present. And this shows it very much wasn't wise, as utilities can be located in the most remote areas. Anywhere you're doing groundbreaking works, no matter how small your site, no matter how remote your site, you can have utilities there, and you do need to search for them. So this example is from the United States of America, but I've included it, as they specifically say, that the reason behind it is that the workers didn't look for the utilities before digging. You've always got to look, or there can be catastrophes that follow. So that's health and safety, I think, covered quite completely. So we'll move on from that to cost savings. So there are various cost benefits to commissioning a utility report. So the most obvious benefit is the time you'll save. As the saying goes, time is money. And commissioning a report will ensure you're not tied up gathering all the utility information yourself, which can be a lengthy and involved process. And we'll take that all off your hands. And this is especially evident in the planning and preparation stages of a development, whether it be a large infrastructure project or even down to an extension on a house. Having the information procured for you will have significant time and cost benefits at this stage. And having the utility information at hand before breaking ground can also save you from potential rescheduling nightmares by ensuring you don't go into projects blind to the utilities you might find in the site area. Knowing their positions beforehand will help you plan around them, which is more cost effective than discovering them later down the line. And then finally, there is also the matter of subscription charges, which people don't always take into account. So certain suppliers maintain a paid subscription service later, and if you commission a utility report, you'll ensure you don't incur these charges yourself, because they can be quite pricey if you just need the one bit of information. So we've covered the direct costs, but the costs, we've covered the indirect costs, but the costs incurred in not carrying out utility search are often much more direct than that, as this example shows. So here, they've not checked for utilities and they burst a water main during a project. And that's cost £200,000 worth of damage. Pre-planning would have avoided that, so that's a direct cost straight away from having not checked for utilities beforehand. But you'd think that that's a large infrastructure project, of course, yeah, huge water pipe, but it can also happen in tiny little projects like this. So here you can see multiple instances of costly damage to pipes in just simple garden projects. So damaging a main can be as simple as a spade being aimed in the wrong place. And that can cause significant amount of money to fix, to get that pipe properly sealed up again. So you really need to be careful. But despite the very direct costs of having gone through a main, you can also have much more indirect costs again, because not all of your costs associated with the damages will be covered by your insurance. You may expect them to be, but not all of them are. So this excerpt from Zurich shows that while the physical costs of damage may be covered, items such as cost of investigation, loss of contracts, insurance excesses, penalties, reduced bonuses, they're not going to be covered by your insurance. The Health and Safety Executive has estimated these extra costs as being around 10 times that of the insurance premiums paid in the same period, which means your cost of damage is a significant matter that you really can't ignore. And so moving on from costs, a further area in which a utility report is useful is providing efficiency benefits. So in the planning stage of a project, utility plans can be used to aid decision making. which helps get a project moving more quickly. And all of the reports are offered in a clear, easy to use format, which means you'll have your useful information resource right there available whenever your project needs it, a very easy to use format. But they're also very valuable once work has begun. So once you're out on site, people can refer to the plans. They'll be nice and easy to use. Refer to the plans, will have ready information right there on site if they need to make a decision on the day. But efficiency benefits do also exist outside of project cycles. All utility reports come complete with supplier details and contact information, which is a useful resource should you need to contact your utility companies. So you've had your report, you've done this, you notice something on the report later down the line, oh, I'll contact your utility company direct and ask them about it. You'll have all the details there, so you can do that further down the line. Now, the final piece in the puzzle of why utility data is important lies with the statutory rules, requirements, and guidelines which surround its collection and provision. And these are relevant to all levels of planning and development, from large infrastructure projects right down to small projects like installing a drop curb outside a house. So it covers the whole gamut. Now, the main items covering utility data are the Health and Safety Guidelines issued by the Health and Safety Executive, the New Roads and Streetworks Act 1991, the Construction Design and Management Regulations also issued by the Health and Safety Executive, and PAS 128, a publicly available specification issued by the British Standards Institution. So first we'll look at the Health and Safety Guidelines, known generally as HSG 47. And these provide guidance for all parties working near underground services, as well as outlining the potential dangers arising from underground services and how they can be avoided. And HSG 47 identifies three basic elements of a safe system of work, which are planning the work, detecting, identifying and marking underground services, and excavating safely around these services. Now, of these, the item which applies to us most in the context of utilities is item 2, locating and identifying buried services. In this area, HSG 47 states that you must, and I quote, obtain plans or other suitable information about all underground services in the area when the work is being planned. Wherever possible, you must consult owners/operators. Remember that for some services, there may be more than one owner/operator. So this therefore highlights utility identification as a crucial element of any groundbreaking works, which you can't ignore. I mean, for instance, especially if you think, right, I know the gas supplier for this area is SGN, you think, right, I can just contact them and I'm done. Aha, there can be all these independent companies that you haven't thought of. So HSG 47, that you must go out to all these. Remember, there can be more than one operator. So following on, we'll have a brief look at the New Roads and Streetworks Act 1991, otherwise known as NRSWA 91. And this act covers all street works and related matters. So while it's not relevant to everybody, it is directly relevant to you if you intend to break ground in a public highway. And the act states that any organisations intending to carry out street works must obtain utility information before work, or sorry, information on utility apparatus before work commences. And the Act also places a duty of care on utility suppliers to record their apparatus and on the parties carrying out the street work to notify suppliers of any utility apparatus they come across which doesn't match up with the plans that the utility providers have given you. So this can sometimes occur, especially where networks are taken over by new companies who may not have been provided with a complete set of information on existing apparatus when they took assets on board. So it will be incumbent on you when you're doing the street works. If you notice anything that doesn't line up with their plans, you need to highlight this to them to ensure that up-to-date records are kept for future excavations. So next we have the Health and Safety Executive's Construction Design and Management Regulations 2015, otherwise known as CDM 2015. This is a document which covers the planning, people, information and communication involved in a construction project. And the document places a duty on designers and contractors to ensure that pre-construction information is provided to control health and safety risks. And a key element of this is utility plans. And this information is required for all construction projects and is not restricted to large infrastructure works. Again, as I say, these things run the whole gamut, even if you're just digging in a garden. And then finally, we have the publicly available specification number 128, commonly known as PAS 128. And this is a specification put out by the British Standards Institution, which covers all elements of utility surveying. It has been widely adopted by the surveying industry and is regarded as the primary standard in this area. And the standard defines 4 quality levels of below ground surveying. The first of which is level D, your desktop utility record search. It goes right up to, so it goes D, C, B, A. Level A is right up there where you are literally using something along the lines of a vacuum excavator to actually look in the ground and verify it for yourself. But there's all the quality levels in between. But the first level, level D, is this, the desktop search. So PAS 128 states that a desktop utility record search, or a utility report as we're calling them, must be carried out before further surveying work is conducted, highlighting it as a highly important element of any subsurface works. So before you go to level C, B, or A for your actual on-site surveys, you've got to have a desktop report first. PAS 128 states you've got to have one. So it also states that the plans that are provided in search must not be older than 90 days, which ensures that any out-of-date plans are not relied upon, which might not contain the most up-to-date information. So if you've had a utility report and it is over 90 days old, PAS 128 highly recommends that you have that updated, because things can have changed, and 90 days is normally the maximum at which these plans remain valid. Now, we've looked at the data, we've looked at the need for the data in detail. So now we'll have a look at the report, what we actually provide. There's a couple of examples of our front covers that we've put on our reports. A utility report provided by us is applicable to all levels of ground penetrating works, whether you're extending a house, improving an entire housing estate, working on transportation networks, or carrying out large infrastructure works, such as installing a cross-country pipeline or constructing a new wind farm. Size no issue. Utility reports can be tailored to fit any size of project, from the tiniest site right up to the biggest cross-country pipeline. Irrelevant, we can fit them all. So in terms of report types, we offer a variety of formats, and the first of these is the Essentials report. The Essentials report includes a search of the 5 key utility suppliers. So you'll get your gas transporter, your electricity district network, your water supply, your sewerage, so both foul and surface, and BT. So you get the main supplier for each utility, as I showed you on the previous slide. It doesn't include any IDNOs, etc. This report is provided after 5 working days and is useful where key information is required at short notice, or where only the main utility information on a site is required, such as in conveyancing matters. Then we offer the premium report. So the premium report is our full report, where we go up to an average of 70 suppliers from our list of over 130. So that, obviously that number goes up and down depending on how many suppliers are actually in your site, but that's the average, and that ensures the complete utility plan coverage for your site. Everybody we know about will be contacted. And this report is provided in 10 working days and is useful where detailed, complete information on a site is required. And then in addition to these 2 report types, we also offer a fast track service. So this includes all the information of our standard reports, but with a quicker turnaround. So premium reports can be provided in 5 working days, whereas an Essentials report can be provided on the day of order. Providing you get to us by midday, we will get what we can get to you back that same day, making it very very useful where informed decisions are required at short notice. And there's all these reports are subject to the same rigorous quality checks as our standard reports, and to ensure complete peace of mind. There's nothing skimped, same quality levels, just quicker. And then finally, we have our utility singles reports. We're able to provide complete information on the gas, electricity, telecoms, or water and sewerage in your area to help you procure only the information you require at a lower cost than a full report. Provided in the same professional format as a full report, subject to all the same checks and procedures, but just where you need information on a specific utility, you don't need the whole shebang. Now, I've talked about all the formats, I've talked about all the utility information, but you may be wondering what this actually ends up looking like. What do you get in a report in terms of the plans themselves? So have a quick look at those. So utility plans can come in a number of formats. You can get sparse plans containing very little detail, such as this satellite image, which contains a utility line running the width of the page. Try and find it. You'll get paper plans, although these are being phased out. There are still a couple of suppliers that issue them, which contain somewhat more detail. These literally come through to us on paper and then either scanned in. And then you get right through to full colour, highly detailed digital plans containing the highest level of detail. This is where the industry is moving towards, but not everybody's there yet. So we will always ensure the best possible plans are procured for your site, but it's important to remember that the plans are only intended to be indicative. A physical ground survey is always going to be your best way to locate utilities, with plans being used as the basis for the search. So for instance, you've got a giant field. The plans will help you know that most utilities are concentrated in the left-hand corner, so you know that's where you need to go and look at the starting point. That's where they're useful in that scenario. So they're only indicative plans, but in the planning stages, if you want to just find out, oh, okay, could this area possibly support a new development, etc. And as a basis for cost savings in a physical search, as I said, but you would always want to team them with a physical survey if you can. So, but looking at these, you can say, well, there's going to be a bit of confusion here. We've got the different plan formats. I'm not too happy about that satellite image, etc. So in order to remove that confusion and any headaches, which these range of plan formats can give you, you can also team a report with our GLASS service, as we call it. Now, GLASS stands for Geo-Layered Asset Survey System, and it's our method of transposing all utility plan information for a site onto a digital drawing, produced in PDF and DWG formats. So there you go, there's an example of the business park where we at Technics operate. Everything is transposed onto one drawing. You've got a nice digital format, nice consistent format. Everything's drawn in the same style. You don't have to sit there flicking through loads of pages, trying to work out how this all fits together. You can comprehend how the whole range of utilities interact and sit amongst each other. There you go. There's a nice zoomed in view. You can see how everything sits around each other, all nice, consistent formatting. Makes it a lot easier to use. And you can also turn all utilities on and off. So there you go. For example, you can examine the BT infrastructure. There, you could examine the electricity infrastructure. You can turn them on and off at will. And they're shown in a clear, easy to use format, devoid of quality issues, any messy formatting, that's all taken away. So that's the premium service. That tends to be the most useful. So we need to bring all of this back into the real world. It's all good seeing this all on a theoretical standpoint. Let's bring it all back to the real world. I'll give you a couple of examples where utility plans have been used as part of a wider project. So the first example is London Bridge Station, as shown here. So you may or may not be aware of the works recently carried out at London Bridge Station, but a major refurbishment of the station has recently been carried out, which involved a large amount of construction and ground penetrating works. So as part of these works, the utilities needed to be identified for the various reasons we've looked at. And so just to take you through the process of how this happened, first off, we just need a simple site plan. That gives us the area where search is required and sets our boundaries for our inquiries. It's very simple, it's enough for us to work from. And from that, we're able to contact all of the relevant utilities in the area, such as the gas supplier SGN, as shown here. And then these plans, in this instance, were then passed on to our physical survey team, who used them as a basis for their searches, employing ground penetrating radar to mark the utilities on site, which were then drawn up in their precise locations in a coherent digital format. And the end result of those works was a safe construction and development project, producing something similar to the design drawing seen here, significant project in which utility plans played a crucial role. So that's where they're relevant to a large project, but they're also relevant to small projects. So in this instance, the project was a relatively small housing extension in a residential neighbourhood. Just wanted to put an extension on the house, refurb it. So the same process was applied. Site plan was marked out, used as the basis for contacting the relevant utility suppliers. The plans were produced, which showed the utilities in the area, and these were then provided to our physical surveying team, who used the information as a basis for their search to find utilities on site. And these were then marked up in a clear digital format, providing the client with clear information on which to base their construction project. And the end result was the transformation of this property, as seen here. So that just shows it's useful for your large infrastructure projects, your small projects, everything in between. So that just about covers our subject for today. So in summary, the reasons and benefits for ordering a utility report from us are as follows, just quickly. So convenience, it saves you the hassle and time in compiling the information you need. Speed, all required information is with you within a short time period. Cost, our prices are competitive with the wider industry and they're cheaper than compiling the information yourself. Quality, all projects are subject to rigorous quality assurance and due diligence. They're reliable, full reports are comprehensive to ensure you have all the information you need, and all reports are included in a clear, easy to read format. Practicality, all reports are suitable for real world use, whether this be an office, home, out on site. compliance. Commissioning utility report ensures you're complying with relevant government guidelines and health and safety documentation. Experience and pedigree. We've got over 30 years experience in the utility industry as a company, ensuring we have the necessary pedigree for your project. And finally, support. We've got a team of utility consultants available. They can always advise you on a range of related issues you're never left on your own. And that just about covers me. So I will hand back to Daniel.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Stephen. Much appreciated. I hope you all found that useful. I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes on how to actually order those reports, to how to obtain them through Emapsite. So whilst I'm doing that, please start sending in your questions, and then between me and Stephen, we'll answer those at the end, and I'll give you time for that. So just as a reminder, when you go into Emapsite, if you haven't been into Emapsite for a while, this is the homepage. I'll start from the beginning, sorry. So this is our homepage, and you can obviously log in and go straight into the platform. You can order your mapping or your reports, and this is where I want to focus our efforts today. Just as a kind of a reminder to get a sample of the reports that Stephen's talked about today. These are the suite of different products and services we have. So from the base mapping that Stephen mentioned in terms of your master map extract or a vector map that will kind of help define where you're interested in. And then going down the page to the different reports and different services we have is our utility section. And as Stephen's mentioned, we've got the essentials and premium services, the standard ones, the 5 and 10 day. And Stephen's also highlighted the new same day turnaround time. And then further down the page, you've got the single options as well. So if maybe it's a house and you just want to know the water network into that site, you can also do that as a service. And then also at the very bottom is the digitization approach as well. Stephen in a second will give you kind of a feel to how that's kind of priced, because I know that's come up quite a bit from last time. But if you go into any one of these product cards before you even buy your own version that you need, there's a PDF sample on each of these pages, so you can actually see the full content of what that report is included. But how do you actually order these reports? So if you go into the homepage again, if you go into the report section of Emapsite, this will appear, and you can type in your location, which I've already pre-searched to save us a bit of time. Dropping in your location, draw in a box, and you get this area up. So obviously across the country can be done. And then you've got the products on the left-hand side. You've got either the single searches that we've talked about, or the combined reports that Stephen's really focused on today. And then you've got the different price points on the report. If you start searching further and further afield, and some of our renewable companies that come to us, but the area is so big, it will say quote, and then you follow that process through. It comes into our customer support team. We validate the price with Stephen and his team, and then come back to you very quickly with a price based on that location. So no delay in that speed. Obviously, if the site's smaller, you can just go through the platform here and just order the report as per clicking the format, PDF, and then going through into your basket and ordering. If you wanted at any point the digital version, that is always priced on application. Because no one site is the same, many different suppliers, different sizes, different locations. So that's always a price on application and getting that quote out of Stephen. I didn't want to spend huge amounts of time here, but just to kind of highlight one other thing why we are here. A lot of our customers that buy utilities also buy the kind of environmental reports, so understanding flood and contaminated land. So just to kind of point you in the right direction, these reports are also here, and you'll get a buffer zone around those sites. And I know from doing this webinar last week, we've got very similar customers that want to do that kind of phase 1 on-site report, as well as then utility reports before they break ground. So I'm going to stop talking and just see if there is any questions coming through. We encourage you to at least ask something. So one question I think that's come through. Stephen, is there a legal requirement for domestic projects, or is it just a useful tool?
There's a legal requirement for anywhere where you're breaking ground. The health and safety legislation, etc., that I pointed out. If you break ground and you go through a utility pipe and they find out that you didn't search for the utilities beforehand, that could cause you some quite big insurance problems. So there is a legal requirement, yes.
So the question I've had through this week, and I'll ask a question, Stephen, on behalf of customers, that obviously if it's a domestic site, it's a small location, the price point is up to a big location. Can you explain the rationale behind that in terms of how the suppliers price for you?
Yeah, so everything from your tiniest garden site up to, we put the buffer at a 500 metre site, so 500 metres in any direction. Supplier data charges tend to be the same. At that point, all suppliers have a base charge. So call it £50. A supplier will do any amount of site from the garden up to 500 metres on average for that fixed price. They don't care. Once you get above that 500 metres magical boundary, they tend to up their data charges. So for that reason, we've just decided that anything 500 metres or below, we'll just do it at a standard price because it doesn't cost us anymore. So that's why we do it that way. And anything above that, the data charges all go up in a variety of different ways. They all have different ways of incrementing up their data prices. So at that point, we then do need to quote for them specifically for each project to ensure we're taking into account the different suppliers and what they're going to charge us.
Thank you, Stephen. So the domestic side of things, it might be worth looking at the individual suppliers if it's very clear cut what you need to be looking at before you dig, going into the garden and things like that, or as per Stephen, it's the combined report that we've talked about, that all start from sort of £325. So is there any other questions? I'm conscious that we've got a minute left, but I'd like Stephen to have a really complicated question to finish us off. If there's any other questions, hang on, there's just one more question, hopefully. Do you provide support? Do you provide support beyond C2 level?
We provide the whole gamut of survey services. So this partnership we've got here going, Emapsite Technics, is for the desktop reports. But if you do then need to take it on further, so if you need to take it on to a physical survey, we can do everything from GPR right up to vacuum excavation of the utilities. We do the whole range.
Okay, excellent. Well done, Stephen. No further ado, as there's no other questions coming through, please think about enhancements to the report itself, enhancements to the ordering. I would really like feedback, good and bad, or not so good. I will contact you all later today and into tomorrow to get your feedback on the report. And if you want any more follow-up with colleagues in the team that weren't aware of these, we can also organise that either through myself or with Stephen involved. So for now, have a fantastic rest of the day. I appreciate your time, and I'll speak to you all very, very soon. Thank you and goodbye.